Overall, you got to look at this report as a big positive. We've got more jobs created than expected. Joe LaVorne, you've been saying this for a long time, saying that the economy is a lot stronger than anybody understands. Your reaction?
It takes a while. Everything Steve said makes complete sense. The numbers are good numbers, no question. The fact that the unemployment rate fell is good. It was because household employment was up over 700,000.
Some of you out there are celebrating Hanukkah right now. Some of you are gearing up for Christmas. But my favorite holiday is Jobs Report Friday, when we get to watch Maria Bartiromo speak to the never-ending raft of winning economic data that Biden is presiding over. And if it sounds like this is a recurring theme, that's because it is. Here's just a small sampling of other recent moments where Maria Bartiromo and other Fox hosts are forced to report on Biden's winning economic news through gritted teeth.
Headline here, this is a blockbuster report. This is much higher than anybody was expecting. 528,000 jobs created in the month of July is more than double the expectations, which called for job growth of 250,000. All areas of the economy actually saw job growth, including leisure, hospitality, the services industry, the industrial industry. That's all good news. This is the kind of report that will likely trigger Joe Biden to take a victory lap. Even though we know that inflation is eating into people's savings, but you don't see that in this number.
Oh, from a political perspective, I would imagine we'll see the president in front of microphones this morning, obviously touting this number. But I'll share a stat with you here, Maria, and it really is incredible. The jobs count has now beaten estimates 14 of the last 17 months. So we thought we were going to get a number here. It ends up being here. In this case, in the month of May, we're talking about 140,000 more jobs added than was expected. It is amazing how the estimates, people keep getting the estimate wrong.
Well, listen, this is good news for American families.
This, Maria, 2.4%.
Wow.
This is the first read, the advanced read for second quarter GDP. Estimate was only for 1.8%. Talk about a strong economy. There goes that recession talk, right? And what's interesting here is the expectation was we were going to have a weaker Q2, this first read, than we had in Q1. Remember, we had a 2% read in Q1 for this year. We were thinking we were going to have a slowdown. It's the opposite, 2.4%. And, you know, even the range, this is in the high end of the range that economists were looking for. So that's pretty darn interesting. Really, Q4 was 2.6%. So economy is still strong.
And of course, all of this is continued good news for anyone who's actually rooting for the country, as opposed to the GOP, which is rooting for bad news that they can leverage to their political benefit. Because something America first. And to that point of rooting for the country, there's a lot to root about. The U.S. economy just expanded at a staggering 5.2% this quarter. Unemployment dropped yet again to 3.7%, marking 22 straight months with sub 4% unemployment, the longest streak since the 1960s. Just this month, we added another 199,000 jobs, bringing the total to over 14 million jobs added during this administration, the most a U.S. president has ever added in one term, and we've still got a year to go. And we're outpacing the rest of our peers in the G7 with the strongest growth of every country. Meanwhile, inflation was at 0 last month, while wages continued to rise, meaning earnings are now outpacing inflation. I don't know how many other ways I can say this. Democratic policies work. Bidenomics works. Don't take my word for it. All you have to do is look at the numbers. But let's zoom out a little bit, because while Biden deserves a ton of credit, he's by no means the only Democratic president to have presided over a strong economy. Of the 50 million jobs created since 1989, 96% have been created under Democratic presidents. 96%. That's 48 million jobs added by Democratic presidents and 1.9 million added by Republican presidents. Joe Biden alone has added 7 times the amount of jobs as the last 3 Republican presidents combined. Not great for a political party that's branded itself the party of jobs, jobs, jobs. And as for the unemployment rate, consider this. George H.W. Bush left office with a 7.3% unemployment rate. Clinton left office with a 4.2% unemployment rate. Then George W. Bush left office with a 7.8% unemployment rate. And Obama left office with a 4.7% unemployment rate. Trump then left office with a 6.3% unemployment rate. And Biden has brought it back down now to 3.7%. So again, in my entire lifetime, Republicans have exclusively aggressively allowed the unemployment rate to rise under their watch. In fact, during the Trump term, all of those fiscally conservative Republicans voted unanimously to add $7.8 trillion to the debt to give themselves a tax cut. A quarter of all U.S. debt was accrued under Donald Trump. So this idea that Republicans are fiscally responsible might be nice branding for them, but it is undermined by every single factual economic metric that exists. And by the way, that's a point that Governor Gavin Newsom drove home in an interview that's coming out this weekend.
Again, another argument in favor of Bidenomics, 14.1 now million new jobs, almost 14.2 million jobs. It's 10 times more than the last 3 Republican presidents combined. You look at, by the way, just on the jobs score, I think it's so important for Democrats out there to understand this. Since the end of the Cold War, since Reagan left office, there have been 50 million American jobs created. 48 million of them, I'll repeat that, 48 out of 50 million American jobs have been created under Democratic administrations, not Republican administrations. The last 3 Republican presidents have one thing in common: recessions. The last 3. I can't believe we've been debating the issue of jobs and the economy in comparing to contrast the Republican Party. So look, again, all of this is, it expresses itself in terms of the work we have to do to lift up the work that Biden and Harris and the Democratic Party have broadly done, and then obviously get things ready for the contrast. And the compare and contrast is where we're going to excel. And that's why I have great confidence going into 2024.
And of course, to see that full interview as soon as it's released, make sure to subscribe to this channel. So look, if you're wondering why all of a sudden we're seeing threats by Republicans to impeach Joe Biden, now you know why. It's not because he did anything wrong. I mean, hell, even they can't conjure up a single piece of legitimate evidence to impeach him for. It is because they need a distraction. What Biden is doing with our economy is what they always promised to do while constantly falling short. Again, there has not been a single Republican administration in my lifetime that's turned in a better economic or jobs performance than a Democratic administration. And Republicans clearly know that, which is why it's going to be nonstop impeachment and Hunter Biden and gas stoves and migrant caravans from now until the next election. But take these desperate distraction attempts as a compliment. They wouldn't have to resort to these tactics if the Democrats weren't overperforming to an extraordinary degree. So look, I get that Republicans want these numbers to crater. I get that they want nothing more than to have some evidence to point to in order to perpetuate this misnomer that Republicans are responsible stewards of the economy. But the truth, based on the actual numbers, is that that couldn't be further from reality. The only thing that is virtually guaranteed from Republicans, going back more than 3 decades, is that there will be fewer jobs added, if any, sky-high deficits, and an economic recession. And that'll be followed by a Democrat cleaning up their messes, just like what happened after Bush 1, Bush 2, and Donald Trump. So while I understand that they are desperate to see cratering GOP and high inflation and low wages and big job losses, the fact is that they're going to have to wait until a Republican takes office before any of those things will happen. Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to the channel and do your part to help grow the progressive media ecosystem. I don't do sponsorships or paid ads, I won't ask for money, but just subscribing to this channel goes a really long way, and it helps get the message out to more people. The subscribe button is right here on the screen. You can also subscribe to my Spanish language channel, which I made to reach those crucial Spanish-speaking voters. That link is on the screen too. And finally, if you want to listen to my audio podcast, you can follow that link as well. Thanks so much for watching.